you drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities?
I'm not going to comment.
Really smart thing when you're doing crime, which is to film and upload and live stream it with your face and name all in it. Guys, up first, we've got to talk about this story that is all over my Twitter feed and timeline right now. Everyone has strong thoughts and feelings, and for understandable reasons, about the protest / criminal riot that just targeted a church in Minnesota. Essentially, the super short version is that a bunch of anti-ICE protesters decided to disrupt a church service and trespass and shout down the pastor because they believe that a person on staff at the church is also an ICE officer. And Don Lemon was there along for the ride in his new career as an independent journalist, but he exposed his own total illiteracy and constitutional and civic ignorance in the process. We're going to break all this down because some people are now calling for his arrest, ? But yeah, without further ado, I'll just read you the headline here from the Associated Press. DOJ vows to press charges after activists disrupt church where Minnesota ICE official is a pastor. The U.S. Department of Justice said Sunday it is investigating a group of protesters in Minnesota who disrupted services at a church where a local official with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement apparently serves as a pastor. A live stream video posted on the Facebook page of Black Lives Matter Minnesota, one of the protest organizers, shows a group of people interrupting services at the city's church in St. Paul by chanting "Ice out" and "Justice for Renee Good." So, I actually have footage from the protest that I'm going to show you guys, because these folks decided to do the really smart thing when you're doing crime, which is to film and upload and live stream it with your face and name all in it. And also Don Lemon was there live streaming the whole thing, and I watched several hours of his live stream to prepare and research for some of the accusations he's now facing. Guys, without further ado, let's look at this first bit of footage.
Today we had the honor to protest with Nikema Armstrong and the Racial Justice Network. Just like Jesus did, we went into that church and we flipped tables peacefully.
You said that you asked the Lord to pray for your house, to pray for you all to get your house in order. That is correct. Well, God, the director of ICE in St. Paul. Justice for Minnesota.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good!
Renee Good. Renee Good. Don't shoot. 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 Hey, shame on you.
Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities?
I'm not going to comment.
You have no comment. Exactly. Renee Good! Renee Good!
We have a duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
So I hate to break it to y'all. Well, actually, I kind of am happy to break it to y'all. These hoes are going to jail. Some of them, at least. For example, the guy behind the camera in this video probably going to jail. And the activist who organized this whole thing and gave very incriminating comments to Don Lemon beforehand about how they were going to go disrupt and flip some tables like Jesus. Her name is Nikema Levy Armstrong, and she is a left-wing activist. She is, I would say, with a high degree of certainty, she's going to jail. And she should, because of all places to target, just as a matter of law, a church is not a great bet because they actually have a lot of special protections. And to disrupt something like this isn't peaceful protest. You don't have a First Amendment right to go trespass on other people's property, shout them down while they're worshiping, and stop their service from continuing while scaring all these children and families in the process. It's an absolute terrible thing to do. It makes you look crazy and deranged, and it's a crime, people. This is not legal protest. This is not free speech in action. This is a series of quite serious federal crimes under the FACE Act, potentially, but also just general trespassing and other sorts of crimes, all being done on live stream with their faces shown. It's the easiest case some prosecutors will ever have. Just handed to them by the activists doing it while meticulously planned, on camera, announced, everything out in the open. And frankly, they deserve it. I mean, this is a not something you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to. It doesn't matter how you feel about ICE. If you disagree with them, protest on the street, protest at the federal buildings, do all sorts of stuff. That is absolutely your right, and I will defend it. But you don't get to go harass churches and shut down their services because you're upset. That's not how this works. And it is a crime, and they should be punished. And they're going to be, I believe. We've already got comments from federal prosecutors that they are looking into this. For example, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon posted on X, at the Civil Rights, which is the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, is investigating the potential violations of the Federal FACE Act by these people desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. She put out that statement last night while this was all going down. And yeah, this is really crazy stuff. It makes your movement look deranged, and it is not peaceful protest. But there's actually another big angle to this story, and that is the angle that involves Don Lemon, formerly of CNN, now turned independent journalist, activist. We've covered some of his unhinged comments in the past because he's really kind of lost the plot when he no longer has handlers writing his scripts for him on CNN. But we're going to get to his piece of the story. First, though, do make sure to subscribe. Do hit the like button. Comment with your thoughts on this protest. How would you react if they were doing this to your church? I would certainly be very upset. But also do consider becoming a channel member to support my content. Hit the join button or the link in the description. It's the best way to support my work so I can call out BS on the left and right, because I don't pander to the partisan YouTube algorithm and just appease one side. And you will unlock, if you join, you will unlock full ad-free, full-length episodes. And they may be getting longer and fuller and even more ad-free as I scale up here in the future with my operation. But yeah, become a channel member. Almost 300 of you have signed up. Let's go. Let's get that 300. Links down below to support my content. Now let's talk about Don Lemon, because everyone's already saying he needs to be locked up, and because he was there and he went along with this. And I think he absolutely embarrassed himself. He went along as an independent journalist with this protest. He went into the building with them. He stood on the sidelines. He observed. He didn't actively participate in the disruption of the protest. He clearly knew about it ahead of time. I probably would have called the police on them if I knew they were going to do an illegal act, but he didn't. He chose to go along and stand on this. I watched the stream, so I saw what he actually did and didn't do. People are saying he stormed the stage and led the chant. He didn't do that. He stood on the sidelines and documented it with his live stream and his camera crew. And then he interviewed people that were involved. So he was there doing journalism, whether you like it or not. But his interview, where he goes up to the pastor, is comically absurd, and it reveals Don Lemon's own complete illiteracy and stupidity. Let's listen to this.
Pastor of the church. Our church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday, and we were interrupted by this group of protesters. Yeah. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left. Yeah. So. What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live there's a constitution and the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we're here.
Okay.
That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to
Unless you're here
chronicle
to
what
worship.
happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So that's one of the pastors of the church.
So this brief interview that he does with the pastor is remarkable for a couple reasons. One, the big one that jumps out to me is Don Lemon suggesting that you have a First Amendment right to assemble on other people's property and disrupt their worshiping. That's not what those words mean, Don. That's not how words work. You have a First Amendment right to peacefully protest and assemble and demonstrate, but not anywhere you want at any time. There's a long and legally upheld tradition of time, place, and manner restrictions on protests, and you don't have the right to shout down and disrupt others. That is not free speech. It's simply not. That's called a heckler's veto when that kind of thing is allowed, because it would allow essentially you can censor or silence anyone you want if you just show up and yell louder than they can speak. And this church is private property. They went there uninvited. They did not leave when they were asked to leave, and they intentionally shouted over and disrupted someone else's worshiping services. That is not free speech. It's not the freedom to assemble. You don't have a freedom to assemble on non-public property. I don't have a freedom to assemble in Don Lemon's house. Like, this doesn't even make sense. And it is astounding to me that you could be a career journalist of, I don't know, 20, 30 years and have such profound misconceptions about how the First Amendment itself works. And then Don really doesn't seem to understand the optics here and how terrible they are for the protesters. At another point, he comments on the fact that some of the kids that were in attendance at this church seem like traumatized by the experience, and he seems to think that's normal and fine. Listen to this.
Watch this guy here. Look, he's hugging his kid. And, you know, I've imagined it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery. Not kidding. That's what protesting is about. And so...
He's seeing these kids all scared being let out of the building by their parents, and he goes, "Oh, I imagine it's traumatic, but that's what protesting is about." No, that's what crime is about, Don, because that wasn't a protest, that was a crime. He really does come off as so ill-informed and so out of touch in this whole thing, and it really is just embarrassing. And I just can't think of a worse way to promote your cause, to actually try to get your message out there, because as we will talk about later in this episode, there is a lot of controversy involving ICE right now, and some of it is well warranted, the concerns that people have with the things that ICE are doing. But there is a right and a wrong way to go about things, and this is just unambiguously the wrong way, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people are saying that Don Lemon should be arrested or prosecuted for his participation in this whole event. And that's where I actually do have to defend him just a little bit, as much as it pains me. First, though, I'll read you a tweet from Matt Walsh, the conservative commentator. Today, Don Lemon and a group of leftist agitators stormed a church service to protest ICE. This is a direct and flagrant violation of the FACE Act, which the Biden administration used to throw pro-lifers in federal prison for years. Don Lemon and his co-conspirators should be facing federal prison. The Trump administration must announce these charges immediately. He follows up in another tweet. I want Don Lemon dragged out of his house by a SWAT team at gunpoint. That's what Biden did to pro-lifers. Time to make these scumbags play by the same rules. Force feed them a dose of their own medicine for once. So the difference between me and Matt Walsh is that I don't believe two wrongs make a right. So I don't believe that and we'll just, for the purposes of this conversation, accept what he's saying about the Biden administration and the pro-lifers at face value, because I don't want to litigate that, and I actually don't know enough off the top of my head to say whether that's an accurate reflection of what happened or not, but let's say that it is for the purposes of argumentation. Well, I don't believe that two wrongs make a right. I don't believe that because the other side censored people and violated their freedoms, we should do the same. And you can't actually say you believe in the Constitution and constitutional rights if you do think that. I mean, it's really pretty basic morality we teach to children, that two wrongs don't make a right, and you're responsible for your own actions, and he started it, is not an actual defense of doing something immoral, illegal, or unconstitutional. So what I will say is what he's saying, what Matt is saying here rings true for the actual organizers and protesters, but it does not and cannot apply to Don Lemon himself. Yes, he went in there, but it is a public space. Anyone is allowed, in that it's open to the public, a church service. So you're allowed to walk in there. He filmed in there, but he very much, I watched the actual live stream of Don Lemon, which was like 6 hours. I only watched the part about the church, which was the first hour and a half or whatever. I promise you Matt Walsh didn't watch it and just popped off these hot takes. That's what they do. They don't actually research things. They just adopt an extreme position and say, this must happen now. I watched it. Don stood to the side during the disruption. He did not participate. He filmed it. And when people came up to him, he repeatedly said, I'm here as a journalist. I'm not part of the activists. I'm here to document this. And then he interviewed people. And he's clearly biased in a form of support. And he clearly knew about it ahead of time because this activist told him and invited him to be there when it happened, though he didn't know what was happening. She just told him something was happening and you're going to want to be here for this. He didn't do a crime, as far as I can tell. That is all free speech, First Amendment, freedom of the press, protected activity. Now, the one thing you could maybe say is that in the interview clip, he, with the pastor or priest, I don't know what the right word is, a pastor, sorry, he did ask Don to leave, and then Don, I don't know, he left within 5 minutes. He didn't immediately leave. So maybe you could charge him with trespassing. I don't know. But even then, you typically just get trespassed from a location and then you get charged with trespassing if you go back there. That's how it typically works. So there's really no crime he can be charged with for going inside and filming the disruption. He did not, as far as we're aware, participate in it in terms of shouting down the priest, stopping. He didn't provide logistical support that I'm aware of. I guess some details could come out that would implicate him in some sort of a way. And he's clearly sympathetic to the criminals, but that's not a crime. That's you're allowed to be. Same way lots of people are sympathetic to all sorts of criminals, depending on their political valence. And yeah, so there's really no there. And ripping up the First Amendment and its protections for independent journalists just to own Don Lemon is not, in fact, worth the squeeze. That's my radical take. I think Don Lemon's a fool. I think he humiliated himself with this video and just displaying this absolute ignorance of the First Amendment and how it actually works. But I don't think he engaged in criminal behavior. And I think that First Amendment protections for journalists documenting even crimes, even riots and violent acts are important. And I mean, would you rather we don't have his stream and his footage and his evidence that will likely be used to prosecute these people? Because that's what would happen if you said, oh, well, if you even go in to film what's happening, you're engaged in some kind of conspiracy. No, we want journalists to be able to document things. And in fact, a lot of his live stream will probably be used as evidence by prosecutors to lock some of these people up. That's my take on it, but you guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to the like button, all of that. Do consider becoming a channel member to support my content. It's the best way to help me stay independent and grow and expand and bring you even more content.